Intel sold its SSD business to SK Hynix and left the NAND flash market. Could you share your thoughts on Intel's move?
Intel started out as a memory company. They first made something called SRAM, which is a kind of a small market today, and then they made DRAM and did very well with that before they got into microprocessors. All of the memory businesses that Intel has ever participated in have been very mixed. Sometimes they're profitable, sometimes they're not at all profitable. And this doesn't suit Intel's bottom line as a company these days. So, when they first got into NAND flash, I thought this is very peculiar. Why are they doing this? And there were actually two reasons for them to do it. One is that they thought that NAND flash was going to be very important in computers in the future. At that time, they were just being used in cameras and voice recorders, things like that. It suited Intel's purposes to have all manufacturers make NAND flash that communicated the same way with the system. And so Intel tried first driving standards for that as a company that was not participating in the NAND flash business, and nobody paid any attention to them. And so they jumped into the business to be able to actually kind of force things to happen. But then there was a second thing too that was perhaps even more important, and that was that Samsung was growing much faster than Intel. And Samsung has always been very open about wanting to be number one in semiconductors. And Intel's defense to prevent Samsung from pulling ahead of it was to get into the NAND flash business. The company first got in a big way with Micron, and then later on started selling its share of the business that is shared with Micron back to Micron because they found out that they really didn't like the business's lack of profitability during an oversupply. So that was the first hint that Intel was planning on getting out of the market. That was maybe more than 5 years before Intel finally did this move of selling its NAND flash business to Hynix. So it's never been a surprise to people who have been in the industry for a long time that they sold the business. It just wasn't a good match for Intel. They weren't able to use it to keep Samsung smaller than they were. And they also were, getting pushback from their investors because of the fact that it wasn't as profitable of a business as the rest of what Intel does. It's a very good idea for Intel. It was kind of a, not so smart idea for them to get into the NAND flash business before. There probably was another way that they could have gotten these standards together. And I think that the idea that they had to use Samsung's technique to stay ahead of Samsung was not really a good strategy.
Besides the Intel SK deal, rumor says Western Digital is also trying to merge with Kioxia. Do you believe the memory industry is going to be more convergent with the purpose of scale management?
I'm not really expecting to see that. The economies of scale, well, actually, the reason why the DRAM market consolidated, and I put this in a report maybe 10 years ago, is that DRAM revenues are growing on average more slowly than the cost of having a competitive manufacturing plant in DRAM. The cost of a fab increases about 13% per year. DRAM revenues increase on average about 4% per year. And so the only way that a company can continue to participate in the DRAM business is by growing at 13% per year. And the only way you can do that in a market that's growing more slowly than that is to increase your market share. So some companies were decreasing their market share, some were increasing their market share by taking over these companies or by just simply shipping more. But it ended up with there being fewer companies in the business. With NAND flash, that's not happening. The NAND flash market is actually growing around 25 to 30% per year, and the cost is growing at about 13% per year. So if anything, the financials of the market support there being, an increasing number of NAND flash manufacturers. I should also note that with regards to Western Digital acquiring Kioxia, there have been rumors about that. I don't believe them. Western Digital has got a very nice deal with Kioxia, where Kioxia makes the parts and Western Digital pretty much gets the high margin part of the business, and Kioxia takes whatever's left. If Western Digital were to take over Kioxia, then Western Digital would lower their overall margins.